Hello everybody, xsubtownerx here, and welcome to a brand new Let's Playthrough series. We're going to be playing some Pillars of Eternity, which is a game that I've been waiting for so long now, and I'm so happy that it's finally released. And I can't wait to get started, to be quite honest, even though I have played for a couple of hours now. Yeah, I'm looking forward to starting this series up, and hopefully it'll be a good one. For those that aren't familiar with Pillars of Eternity, it is basically a spiritual successor to the old classics like Baldur's Gates and, I don't know, Icewind Dale and all those Infinity Engine games from way back in the day. And of course this game was backed, so thanks to all the backers. And yeah, Obsidian did a really good job with this game. They've created their own rules. It doesn't follow any, D&D rules by any means. It's just completely from scratch, and it's really, really well done, I have to say. So yeah, it's a cRPG. It uses a real-time combat system with pause, and is very, party-focused. You have to work as a well-oiled machine, all your companions together, to succeed in combat. So that's going to be the fun. That's going to be the challenge. I can't wait to get started. So how about we do that? How about we just start this game? Let's go new game. I don't normally show the game settings when I'm doing these Let's Playthroughs, but I figure I kind of wanted to do it this time because there are some interesting things to talk about here, like the difficulty levels. Now, we're going to play on normal. The normal difficulty requires strategy and efficiency, but forgives a few mistakes in combat. It's not recommended for newcomers to the real-time party-based RPGs. For a first playthrough, I figure normal makes sense. Now, you also get the Trial of Iron, which allows you, well, it doesn't allow you, but you only get one save. So if your party falls in combat, you have to start from scratch. You got to start all over again, which I have to say is very, very tempting. But I'm not going to do that. Obviously, that would suck if I did die, and then, the whole series would be botched after that. Expert mode is interesting as well. However, I think for a first run, I probably would not use it. You can actually go here into the options, game options, and you'll see what expert mode actually does. I will, however, remove maim companions before death. So basically what maim does is that if your character falls to, 0 health, he doesn't die, he becomes maimed. And what maim does is that he comes back, with 1 hit point, and of course has the maimed affliction, if you will, which reduces a lot of his stats, and you can cure it by resting. But if a maimed character falls again in combat, then he's permanently dead. However, we're going to remove that. So if one of our companions falls, he's dead. He's gone forever. And I think that should add some coolness, I guess, to the playthrough. So sorry. So that's what we're gonna do, and I just thought I'd mention that. I mean, if you go expert mode, all these up here are disabled. So, but because I'm still not 100% familiar with the game, I don't restrict the stash. I'm not even sure what that means. Oh, I allow the stash to be accessed from any location. See, I don't know. I'd rather have these options right now in my first run, but the main thing I think should be pretty cool. So that's pretty much it for that. So yeah, let's do the new game, normal, and accept, and begin the journey. Okay, so character creation. Let's go ahead and create our character, which is always a fun thing to do in these games, and especially in this one, because honestly, I mean, of course there's probably ultimate builds, if you will, but there's a lot of viable builds. Like, the way the game works, you can just try a whole bunch of different things and you'll probably succeed. You're not going to end up getting screwed like halfway through the game or anything like that, which is something I really like with this game. We're going to go ahead and we're going to roll a female character. This actually does influence different dialogues that you will have, with all the NPCs throughout the game. So if you're male or female, your background story, your culture, all that plays, plays into the whole dialogue options that you will have throughout the game. So there is going to be differences playing as a male or female. I'm going to roll a female just because I feel like it. A female rogue Orlan is what we're going to be building. So you got a whole bunch of different races. I'm going to go through this quickly just because there's already like a plethora of different character creation videos out there. But yeah, I mean, you got your human, you got the Omawa. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. They get +2 might. The humans get +1 resolve, +1 might. We'll go through these attributes as we, progress through the character creation. You got the dwarves. They get +2 might, -1 dexterity, +1 constitution. They probably make for pretty good tanks, I would think. And the Omawa probably good barbarians, but like I said, you could pretty much play any of these races whichever way you want. It's really the class defines what kind of character you're gonna have. So feel free to take any race and play as, with any class, if you will. So do not worry about that. The elves get +1 dexterity, +1 perception. The Orlans get, what do they get? They get +1 resolve. They get -1 might, but they get +2 to perception, which I really, really like. I really love the perception attributes in this game. And you also get the godlikes, the creepy godlike creatures. They get +1 dexterity and +1 intellect. And that's pretty much the gist of it. I mean, some of these races have subclasses, or a sub-race for this particular one. You can play as the Death Godlike, which will do different things. You got the Fire Godlike, Moon Godlike, Nature Godlike, and they all do different things. Same with the Orlans. There's 2 different types of Orlans. You got the Wild Orlans and the Hearth Orlans. We'll go through that later because we are going to be playing as an Orlan. You got the elves, you got a couple of different elves, you got the wood elves and the pale elves, and like I said, they all do different things, so feel free to, once you get the game and play through and create your characters, just check everything out. There's a lot of different things with the sub-races. Dwarves as well, they get the sub-race. You got a couple of different ones here that obviously do different things. And the Omawa, I don't think they get any yet. There's coastal and island, the island Omawa, and same for the humans. There's three different sub-races with the humans, but these ones I've noticed they all show the same thing though. I'm not sure if that's supposed to change or anything, but it doesn't. I mean, I guess it'll affect the dialogue you might have with specific NPCs, but besides that, they seem to have the same thing. Whichever one you go with, so that's a little bit strange. But anyways, so we're going to be rolling the Orlan, like I said. We're going to go with the Hearth Orlan, because we get, with them, minor threats. When attacking any target that is also being targeted by a teammate, the Hearth Orlans convert some of their hits into crits, and I really, really like that. So that means, I don't know actually what that means, like number-wise, I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds very interesting. As opposed to the Wild Orlan, they get the Defiant Resolve. After being subjected to a will attack, Wild Orlans temporarily gain a bonus to all defenses, which in theory can be very cool as well, but I just like the more aggressive approach of the Hearth Orlans. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So then, of course, you got, like I was mentioning, you get all the different classes, and basically the classes define everything, like how much endurance you're going to have and how much health and all that kind of stuff. So it's not the actual race. So just keep that in mind when you are taking the race. Feel free to play as anything. It shouldn't really affect all that much besides the starting, besides their bonuses, like the humans with the +1 resolve and +1 might. So just keep that in mind. So anyways, as we were going along here, so you got the barbarians. The barbarians are the ones that get actually the most endurance and the most health. And the way endurance and health works in this game is that it's well, you got endurance and you have health. They're both defined in combat. So basically, when you run out of endurance, you're knocked out in combat. And when you reach 0 health, well, since we've removed the main feature for this particular playthrough, you will be dead. So basically, endurance for the barbarian is 48. Starting at 48 plus 16 per level, very high, and it's the highest, I think, of all the classes. You also have the health, which is 6 times the endurance, which is also, I think, one of the highest. Actually, it has to be the highest since it's 6 times the endurance, which they get the most of. So they will have a lot of health as they play if you take them. Accuracy is average, deflection is low, so they don't get really good defenses, and they don't, they're not super accurate, so keep that in mind. You also got the ciphers. I haven't really tried the cipher all that much, so I'm not quite sure what they're all about or what they're like equivalent to from older games. But yeah, they get endurance 30 plus 10 and all that kind of stuff. I'm not gonna go through all of these. There's a lot to go through. You got the fighter, the paladin, the ranger, the wizard. Actually, the ranger, I don't know if they've changed it yet. That there is something to note though. The way they used to work, and the builds that, from the press releases that maybe you've checked out those videos already, is that the way it works now with the companion is that if the companion dies, you used to die as well, but they've changed that now. So it's going to be a little bit different, but they haven't, I don't think it's updated yet, but I know they were talking about that on the forums. So yeah, take that into account if you're going to go as the ranger. The ranger is actually going to be a little bit easier to play with than it used to be. Like I said, you got the wizard, you got the chanter, which is it's a very good class. We're going to want to find one ASAP, actually, in our playthrough. They're, I guess, the equivalent to like a bard. They sing songs, and then after they've accumulated a certain amount of invocations, as it's called, they can cast like a powerful spell. So it's pretty good. They're pretty good. I mean, I really like that class, and it makes combat a lot easier having them, because most of their chants or phrases are things that will either buff you or buff like your whole party, or debuff the enemies. So it's or weaken the enemies, if you will. So it's very important to have a chanter in your party. Druid, self-explanatory, not very different than any other game, really. I've tried it out. It's very interesting to play as, but not really my thing, though. Of course, you got the monk if you like the whole unarmed thing. They do get a good amount of endurance, 42 plus 14. I think that's less than the fight. No, it's the same amount as the fighter. So, like I was saying, the barbarians are the ones that get the most health and endurance. You got the priest, which is also quite self-explanatory. And yeah, I mean, we're going to probably want at least one of those guys in our party, because being able to heal is very important. You cannot actually heal health. You can only heal endurance. Health, the only way you can re-heal health is through resting. So resting in this game is very, very important. And of course the rogue, which is what we're going to be rolling. So basically, starting ability, sneak attack. Applies bonus damage to the rogue's ranged and melee weapon attacks when the target has any of the following afflictions: blinded, flanked, hobbled, paralyzed, petrified, prone, stuck, stunned, or weakened. Now that's a lot of different things. So we get a sneak attack when these things are on. It also applies to any target the rogue strikes with a weapon within the first 2 seconds of combat. So when you're engaging an enemy, you probably want your rogue, or rogues if you're going to be rolling more than one, you probably want them to, to strike the enemy first before the enemy strikes you, probably with a ranged weapon or something, as long as it's 2 seconds within the beginning of the combat. And yeah, we get +1 to stealth, +2 to mechanics. I'll go through that when we actually start the game. These are skills that are used, I guess, out of combat. Some of them are used in combat, actually, like lore allows you to use, scrolls of different levels. Mechanics is very important. This is what we're going to want to detect traps, unlock things, and also find hidden objects, which is why I kind of wanted to roll a rogue. But then again, you can have mechanics on any other character. It doesn't really matter. But it does combo pretty well with stealth. And stealth is something else that we're going to want in this game with this character as well. So we get endurance 36 plus 12 per level up, which is actually considered very low. We also get health 4 times endurance. Accuracy, we're very high, so we're not the best, but we're tied for the best. 30 plus 3 is the highest out of all the classes. I think there's 3 classes, or 4 maybe, that get the 30 plus 3 accuracy, and this obviously levels up per level. We get 3 per level. And there's also ways to enchant your weapons to be more accurate as well. So there's other ways to increase your accuracy. But your main attributes do not increase accuracy, so keep that in mind. And also deflection 15, which is very low. Deflection, well, we'll go through all the different types of, defenses. There's four defenses to note. There's fortitude, deflection, will, and reflexes. And yeah, they all do different things. But like I said, we'll go through that once we actually start the game. And yeah, there we go. So rogue it is. Rogue. Why isn't it starting? Oh, next. I was clicking done and nothing was happening. Alright, so starting ability. Well, we get 2 starting abilities that we can choose from. You got Crippling Strike, which is 2 per encounter. So basically some skills and some spells can be used per encounter or per rest. So basically per encounter is, if you're done a fight and you start a new fight, these will replenish again to 2. Versus the rest is, say you only get, to use a specific ability twice per rest, well, you're going to have to rest to get them back. So those are the kind of, the type of spells and skills that you're going to want to use, I guess for tough fights, unless you want to rest often. But in this game, resting requires supplies, and supplies aren't infinite by any means in this game. So you're going to have to, unlike the old school games where you can pretty much rest whenever you wanted to, in this game you're probably going to want to micromanage that part of the game. Okay, so this one here, Crippling Strike, basically hobbles the target for 10 seconds. So basically, a hobbled enemy loses 2 dexterity, movement is reduced by 3, and reflexes is reduced by 20. Now, reflexes is basically used versus, physically harming AoE attacks. Do I got that right? Yeah, versus AoE attack, physical ones. So it's not, melee or range attacks. It's really just AoE attacks that are physically harmful to your character. So, I mean, hobbling a character is nice and all, but you do get 2 per encounter. I really like the blinding strike more, though, because a blinded enemy, accuracy is reduced by 25 for all sources. So any form of attack, accuracy is reduced by 25. That's a big number. And I really like that. It's only for 10 seconds, but there's a way to increase that, and we'll go through that as we continue the character creation. Perception is reduced by 4, movement is reduced by 2, and reflex and deflection are reduced by 20. So obviously blinding an enemy is a lot more, in my opinion, a lot more valuable than hobbling. However, you get 2 hobbles per encounter versus the blinding, you only get 1. Blind is basically it's versus the reflex of the enemy, and hobble is versus the fortitude of the enemy. And what fortitude does is basically, your defense versus poison, disease, and all that kind of stuff. So hobbled would be considered one of those things. But I'm going to go with blinding strike. I really do like the blinding strike. So here we go. We got the attributes. La-di-da. Let's begin this part. I've been trying a whole bunch of different builds with my rogue, actually. Actually, before we do the attributes, though, we're going to go and pick our culture, because each culture increases an attribute by 1. And when you're designing your character, it's a little bit confusing. I don't know why they don't put this before the attribute selection, actually. It doesn't make much sense. But you got a whole bunch of different culture with the different lores, and of course, they all do different things. I'm going to go ahead and do the Deadfire Archipelago, which gives us +1 dexterity, and basically we're like a lawless, pirate type of character. Very, I'm going to make a very, not an evil character, but a very crude, thievy type of character that's very mean and that kind of thing. I don't know why, I just felt like rolling that. So anyways, Deadfire Archipelago seemed like it makes a lot of sense. +1 dexterity. I'm going to go with that, but let's go back just 1 now. So, might. Let's go there. So basically, how did I have this? So basically, let's go 10 right now on might and constitution. So might increases your damage and healing and fortitude defense. Constitution increases your endurance and health by a certain %, and of course your fortitude as well. So I want higher might because doing a lot of damage with the rogue is it's really good. It's like really good. So we're gonna want our attacks to do as much damage as possible. So I'm gonna, for every point I put in might, I'm actually gonna reduce constitution. Now we're already kind of like a squishy character. However, this is a percentage. We lose 12% endurance and health. Seeing as how the rogue already starts with a low value, the 12% is not as great as, say, if you were reducing the constitution of like a barbarian that has the highest endurance and health. His 12% will be worth a lot more than the rogue's 12%. So that's why I don't actually mind reducing the constitution on the rogue. At least with the test I've done, it didn't seem like it made much of a difference, to be quite honest. I mean, you do lose fortitude, but I gain it right back here with the might. So my fortitude stays at 0. Dexterity, of course, I'm going to want to max that out as high as possible, which for this character is going to be 19. And what dexterity does is it increases your attack speed and your reflexes. Now, we already went over what the reflexes do. It's your defense versus AoE attacks, physical AoE attacks. And, well, action speed is pretty much, self-explanatory. I mean, the faster we attack, the more hits, or the more chances of hits we're going to get. So, to me, the highest dexterity possible on a rogue makes a lot of sense. And it actually, I find it synergizes really well with perception as well, because perception gives you a chance, or increases your interrupts. And basically, in this game, you got interrupts and concentration. So, interrupt, you have a chance of basically interrupting the action of, an enemy. And so do the enemies. The enemies can interrupt you as well. And you get your interrupt stat, and you also get your concentration stat. So like I mentioned, interrupt versus concentration. But since we attack often, it makes a lot of sense to have high interrupts. Not to mention that perception also increases your deflection and your reflexes. Now, deflection is the one is your defense that helps you defend against melee and range attacks, but not AoE attacks, just the standard attacks. So a high deflection is actually really good, especially for our character that's kind of squishy. Anyways, perception makes a lot of sense. Now, it can actually go higher than 18 because we do get +2 for being an Orlan. So I can actually get this thing to 20. I had to reduce some resolve, but I'll figure it out exactly how I want to do this. I just want to go through some of the attributes real quick. So perception is going to be 20. And like I said, we get a +30 interrupt. We get +10 deflection and +20 reflexes. So our defenses are quite high right off the bat by going, as high perception as possible. And dexterity 19, well, that's as high as I can go, unfortunately, because the base is 18. The highest we can go is 18, and we get an extra +1 because we are Deadfire Archipelago. But of course, if I could go higher, I would, because action speed for a rogue makes a lot of sense. And then you got perception, we've done that. So now the intellect. Basically, the rogue doesn't have a lot of area of effect skills. So basically, your area of effect is increased by a certain percentage if you have high intellect, which is very good for mages, obviously, or wizards, rather. They're called wizards in this game. And anybody else that has a lot of AoE attacks or spells or skills or whatever. Like the barb actually has a lot of AoE skills, so actually a barb with high intellect, I know it sounds weird, actually kind of makes sense in this game, if that's the way you want to roll. But for us, yeah, I'm definitely going to boost intellect, just because I also like the fact that it increases the duration of our skills. Now, for example, blind, our blind skill had a base of 10 seconds. It lasts for 10 seconds. So basically, if I can get this to 10%, the blind will now last 11 seconds. But I would actually like this to be 20%. So I'm going to reduce resolve, which is concentration, deflection, and will. We do, like I said, we get a lot of deflection already from perception, so I don't mind losing some deflection from low resolve. And the will, well, the will is the defense versus mental-based attacks like paralyze and all those types of things. I mean, it might come back to haunt me having a low will, but don't forget, I will be increasing the intellect some more, which also increases your will defense. And yeah, I think I'm going to actually go resolve 4. I think I'm that crazy. And constitution, I might actually bring this down to 15. I would like to max out might at 17. 15% duration, that's actually kind of high. 10% duration. No, you know what? I'm going to reduce. I'm going to go 16 might, 5 constitution. I'm going to go 19 dex, which is the max for this character. 20 perception for this character, and intellect 14. I mean, it makes sense. We get 20% duration. So now our blind will actually last 12 seconds instead of 10 seconds, which is kind of nice. Kind of nice. I like that. And of course, resolve, well, like I said, this might come back to haunt me. Right now, we're getting minus 18 concentration. But seeing as how I attack fast anyways, and the rogue has a lot of skills that can just make her really hard to hit, I don't really care about concentration, honestly, on the rogue. That doesn't seem like it's something I need. Plus, I attack fast. So if I ever get, if I ever lose the role of interrupt versus concentration on this character, my attack speed is very high, so I will be getting another attack quicker than most other characters. So, I don't know. I don't think concentration on a rogue is all that important. Probably why they don't put a star next to this. I don't think, anyways, I don't think it makes sense. Although 4 might be very low, but anyways. So that's going to be the build, man. This is it. 16, 5, 19, 20, 14, and 4. We already done the Deadfire Archipelago thing for the culture. You also get your background thing, which will gives you different types of skills, and of course a different background, which will be used for certain dialogue. So keep that in mind. I am going to be a raider, however, which gives us stealth +1 and athletics +1. You spent your life on the wrong side of the law. What you want, you take, and what was theirs has a tendency to become yours. So like I said, I want to make a rogue that's also like a thief, a little bit of a, let's say it, a bitch. She's going to be quite, not evil, but she's going to be quite, rude, quite snide, and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, raider background, next. And yeah, primary colors here, let's do this quickly. I don't know, it doesn't, I kind of like the golden thing though. Let's go golden on the primary, which is the top. You can see the sleeves right there change colors. And secondary, let's go for something, I don't know, dark gray maybe, or something else. I'm going to go with the light gray, actually. I kind of like that. Let's go accept on that. Skin color, I'm going to make her dark just because it's, I'm stealthy. I'm very stealthy, so dark skin makes sense, I guess. I don't know. Hair, we're going to go dark hair as well. I actually kind of like the hairstyle in this already, but let's see what the other hairstyles are. Also different heads. She looks a little bit more evil this way. Even though I said I wasn't making an evil character, I kind of like this though. It makes her look a little bit meaner. And we're gonna change the different hairs. There's there's a lot of different hairstyles. I actually like this one, but doesn't seem like it'd be appropriate for a rogue. But I do like that. I don't know why. It's a very, very nice looking. I'm gonna go ahead for something, something slick like that. Yeah, slick chickadee. All right, so there we go. That's basically the gist of our character. Character creation is almost done. You got tons of different portraits. They were supposed to add more. There was actually supposed to be a day one patch, and it's not out yet as I'm doing this recording. But there's supposed to be a lot more portraits. You can also use your own portraits if you want. I'm going to go ahead and take this one, though, because I kind of like the way it looks, even though the skin tone doesn't match what we have on our character, but still close enough. I like it. Next, we get to choose obviously the voice. I'm going to go with the sinister voice.
Now I am leader of the group.
That's right. You are leader of the group. And her name will be Bree Spicer. That's her name. So let's accept that. And that's pretty much it for character creation. Yeah, that's it for this episode as well. Probably dragged on a little bit longer than I would have liked, but stay tuned for part 2, which will be, beginning the journey, the adventures of Bree Spicer, the Orlan orc. What the hell am I talking about? The Orlan rogue is what I meant to say. Thanks for watching, everybody.